Hello everyone, we are continuing building an Android browser, and we are doing this by using components from Mozilla, Android components that you can use like Lego to build a browser. And let me quickly show you the last state from Friday, I think. So this is our browser. We can, as you can see, look at websites. We can click on things in websites. We have a toolbar that we can type into, and then it loads the page. And whenever we click on a link, the toolbar is updated to show the new URL. So that is actually a browser you can already use. And we did this in the 2 earlier episodes. And at the end of the day, there's not much code. We stuffed everything into this activity for now. We set up, or let's look at the layout first. We have a toolbar and an engine view. So the toolbar is quite obvious, the thing at the top, and the engine view is rendering the web content. And then we added those feature thingies that know how to glue all the things together. And then we add a session, which is basically a tab. We add a first tab when you open the app, and then we pass some lifecycle methods along, and that's it. So that's all we have here, and that gives us a browser that's already quite usable, but there are a bunch of things missing, and most of them are provided by those feature components that you can use, or you can write your own code if you want to do something else. And today I want to add some more features and show that if we drop some of those in, we get a much better browser by not writing much code ourselves. But before we do this, I think we finally need to do something about our singletons. Here, this engine, this browser store, this session manager that you can see at the top, those are meant to be singletons. There should only be one in a process. Yes, as an example, the browser engine, there's of course only one engine, and if you switch activities, you don't need a second engine. The engine should run in the process at all times. And we created those as properties in the activity, and that's obviously totally wrong, because the activity has a shorter life cycle than the app in most cases. Like just rotating the activity might create a new one, and then we would do all those things again. I didn't even try this in this sample. It might even crash because you can't have 2 engines in the same process. So we need to turn those into singletons, and there are obvious methods how you can do this. You can write your own singletons, or singleton wrappers for those. That might get annoying over time. In reference browser, which is also a browser using those components, there is actually a components object that creates a lazy tree of those components, and the components object itself is attached to the browser application, and then from any context, with the help of extension methods, you can get to those components and then follow the tree to get whatever you need. That kind of works if you don't have too much, and you can manage the tree yourself. No magic involved, mostly, apart from the extension methods maybe. But we might want to do something else this time. And I opened an issue about how we should manage our singletons. It didn't get any input, unfortunately, but I will make a pick. I think it's time to try Hilt. I haven't used Hilt so far, and this might be a great place to try it, I think. Mostly because we can get away with using an alpha dependency injection framework. I wouldn't want to do this in an app that actually ships. So let's quickly turn this into a Hilt app. And I looked at the docs a little bit beforehand. So we need to add some dependencies. Let's look at them here. Yeah, which version? I remember I searched this page to actually figure out what the version is, and it's nowhere to be seen. But somewhere in this unread developers docs, there's a version. And I checked that this seems to be the latest version if you browse JCenter. I'm not sure if there's a better way. Okay, let's Gradle sync and then look at the setup guide again. So we added, oh, I actually added the Java version of dependencies. Let's add the Kotlin syntax for it. 228 alpha something. What was the version number again? Oh no, that's 228 alpha. Okay. For anyone who's watching, I'm happy to at any time stop and answer your questions, and until then I will just continue. Okay, could not find kept for arguments. Did I make a mistake here? Let's go back. To 28. No, that looks fine. Oops, wrong line. Let's sync again. All right, why is this not working? It's literally the first thing we need to do. I think one thing. Yeah, this line is also missing, but I think that should not do anything here. We need to, yeah, thank you. We need a Gradle plugin. That is this part, right? But this should not be needed to resolve the dependency, or does it? Well, we can add it here and see. Maybe that's it. 228 alpha and apply the plugin. Oh, now I think I might know what you mean. The cap plugin, right? This is also a plugin. Let's see, isn't this mentioned? Did I? Let's see, sync. Oh, I added the empty plugin. That obviously does not work. But there's another plugin for kept, right? Yeah, could not find method kept. Why is this not by the kept plugin? Kotlin kept. All right. Okay, awesome. That looks better. Thank you for your help. And so let's go back to the docs. Gradle setup might be done. And we want Kotlin examples. Okay, we need to have an application object so that we can put this annotation on it. Let's start create a browser application. And then we extend application. And where's the manifest? Let's add this here too. Okay, now we can use this Hilt Android app. Is this all? Yeah, looks good. Okay, let's continue. Build application, I guess we kind of, yeah, we did this. Now we need the entry points. So we can turn our activity at the Android entry point. And from now on we want to inject those things here. So place it with add inject late init var. And remove the initializers here, the lazy ones. Okay, awesome. So I assume if I run this now, it will complain that it does not know how to create those. I mean, at least engine is an interface. So we need, how do we name the package? Oops, those are, what are those modules in Dagger? So core components module. The reason why I named this core components, there are like a couple of or multiple components that you need all the time, and that's basically in a browser, it's the engine, store, and session manager. So we at times use the name core components for those because, yeah, they are needed everywhere. Okay, how do we create such a module? Modules. Add module, add install in. Okay, so module, install in the application component because we need those be available everywhere. And now I think we can write the methods. Provides engine, provides, and this is a singleton in the application, and we return an Gecko engine instance, and we need at least a context. If I remember correctly, you can in an application component always get the application object, which is exactly the context we want here. Why did I write public? All right, and then we need the browser store. It's also a singleton. There's only one that keeps the state for the whole browser. Provides store, so browser store. This one we can just use the constructor for now. Later we will maybe configure some of them to do more fancy things. And the session manager. To recap, the session manager is the old legacy thing that keeps the state, now replaced by the browser store. But for now, while we migrate from the engine, from the session manager to the store, you will need both for a while. And if you pass in the store here, then this will be fine. The component will take care of synchronizing both things. Okay, we have a session manager, store, and an engine. and we need them here, so I guess we can try this. Oh yeah, so our activity is still a regular activity, so let's convert this into a component activity from Android X. That's a requirement to use at entry point. Clean up the imports. Let's see if this still runs. Time for coffee. Right, launches. See a toolbar and it's loading. Yeah, awesome. That is working. So let's take a quick look. We have those use cases here. Very short description of them is they wrap functionality so that you can pass it around. For example, the toolbar needs to load URLs, and the session use cases provides methods that do this so that the component does not need to know about all the things needed to actually load the URL in this tab right now. And they can be singletons. We could turn them into singletons, but it's also fine to create an instance when you need them. There's no state in them, basically. For memory reasons, it might make sense to keep them as a singleton, but I think for now we can just create them here, since this is also the only place where we need them. And then those features, they are more interesting. They are scoped to, or they should be scoped to the lifetime of the views, because we pass in view and references like here the toolbar and here the engine view. So if we later on maybe turn this into a fragment, then those features need to exist as long as the views, or not longer than the views at least, since otherwise we basically leak the view instances. And I looked at Dagger, or Hilt in this case, and I couldn't find a way to do this. So I think for now we will also just keep them as is. Where's this list of components here? So there's a fragment component, and if I understand it correctly, it is scoped to, yeah, here it's listed, on attach and on destroy. But we would need to create this during fragment on create view and on detach view, so that if the fragment gets detached and the view gets destroyed and it later gets attached again and a new view gets created, so that we create a new instance and throw it away if the view goes away. And it looks like that is, at least if I look at this, not possible right now. And we even would need to get access to the view. But anyhow, they only need to be created here, or if we move this into a fragment on view created, for example. So we can leave this for now here. It's not that bad. There's one small cleanup we can do. We passed on start and on stop to the features, and we needed to do this because we were like a vanilla activity. Now that we use the Android X one, we can just register our features. No, not this. Lifecycle, add observer, session feature, and toolbar feature, and then we can get rid of those. Since all those or feature classes that care about lifecycle extend lifecycle aware features, and they are lifecycle observers. So that's easier. Let's deploy this again to see if everything is still working, and then this is probably the first thing we can commit today. Here's a shell. Okay. Hello, Dennis. Thank you for following. And I think you're on PTO, so that's a weird way to spend your PTO. And all right, let's take a look. We added some Gradle foo. We added a browser application object to the manifest. We removed all our manual creation of engine store, session manager. We stopped calling lifecycle methods ourselves, and this is a very basic application object that we created. And then we created a core components module that knows how to create the things we care about. And yeah, that's it. Let's commit this. What is the issue number? 2. So closes issue 2. Use Dagger Hilt to create core components, or create and inject core components. Okay, let's push this, and for everyone who hasn't seen the repository yet, I will also just paste this into the chat. And then let's actually add a feature to our browser. Let's pick a component. One of the features. And I assume this is this time going quite quick because we have this shell browser and we can throw in almost anything. I feel like downloads might be a good candidate. If we go to our browser, then we need to use a search engine. Downloads test page. There's like, yeah, this one that I use all the time because they're like dummy files in different sizes that you can download from different IPs or ports, and that's always super useful. So let's copy this page because we might need to visit this more often. And then let's add downloads. And let's see what is needed for that. We need to start with the dependency. Let's add the downloads feature, downloads component, sync. Let's see, how docs helpful? Looks fine. There are two things we need to do. Add this feature. What this feature is going to do, it looks at the state, and whenever something adds a download to the state, because you clicked something, the engine returned an event, our state component sees this event, updates the state, and then this component sees, oh, there's a download, and that's in this feature that we are going to add, this feature class. Then it shows a dialog by default, and if you say, yeah, let's download, then it launches a background service that performs the download. So we need to add the feature to kick off the download and showing the dialog. And then we need to add a wrapper service that extends the code that is in a component for the service, and because we need to pass in some components, and since the app is responsible for creating and managing those components, the service that is implemented in this component needs a little bit of help figuring out where to get those things from. But that should be fairly straightforward. So let's start with the feature. Downloads feature of type downloads feature. And then here we are going to create it, downloads feature. And this needs a context, application context in this case, the store, download use cases. Let's create them here. Download needs the store as well. And then it has two methods on need to request permissions, and yeah, that's the only important one right now. If it needs a runtime permission to actually perform a download, like the storage permission, then it needs to pass this to the application so that the application can do the right thing. And what this means can depend on the app. Like, do you want to request a permission immediately? Do you want to show something to the user to ask them up before that to make sure why you're asking or whatever? So it's not as straightforward. So we need to handle this in the app, and the easiest way to do this, I think, is just to pass it to the application, to Android. Like we have this list of permissions. Let's just request the permissions from Android, and then let's a request code. Let's make this nicer later on. Use one. And then in the case of on permission, if we get the result, we need to tell the feature about it. On permission result. Here are the permissions. And those are the results. Did I pass in the right thing? Okay, doesn't like the out here. Oops. All right. So that should be enough that it recognizes the download request, shows a dialog, and then we can are probably getting asked, do you want to give storage permission to the app? And then we say yes, and then this thing will continue and launch the service. Let's give it a try. It should fail to actually launch a service because we didn't add any service yet. Let's see how far we get if we just run this. Well, let me wait the typing here. Yeah, there's a bunch of things here. You can customize the fragment that shows the dialog and so on. We don't care about this. We just want the defaults here. I'm surprised that we do not have any docs about the service here, because I'm pretty sure that's something we need to define in our app and extend. Yeah, there's this abstract service here. Yeah, okay. Let's go to this test page again. Downloads test page. Let's click on one of the smaller files here at the bottom. 10 megabytes sounds great. Okay, it does not show anything at all. We'll figure this out. One of the obvious things here that is missing is the permission, I think. Come on, autocomplete. I can't remember the permission names. No way. Usually it just autocompletes them. Otherwise I will just steal them now from the reference browser project. Internet, yeah, looks like we got this from GeckoView automatically. Read external storage, write external storage, location, camera, audio. We don't need those yet. And let's also add the service now. Let's create a downloads package. And the download service. We extend abstract fetch download service. Oops. This. And then we need to implement some members. Okay, so let's revert the order because that is probably more interesting. We need the store. We already have the store, so we can probably get this injected by Dagger, I hope. And we need to turn this into a late init var and say inject. And then we need the HTTP client. So that's maybe interesting. Let's go back to the repo. In one of the past episodes, I explained concepts. The very short explanation is concept components contain interfaces that describe how a component can be used, and then there can be multiple implementations of this component. Everything else just depends on those interfaces so that you can switch to whatever implementation you want. The one we are interested in right now is the concept fetch component, which describes how an HTTP client can be used from other components. And then there can be multiple implementations because an application might already have picked an HTTP client and we don't want to force another one onto the app. And for the app, it also makes sense to use the same HTTP client for all things. So there are 3 implementations currently available. One is fetch HTTP URL connection, that is using HTTP URL connection of the Android device. So it's only a very thin wrapper around what comes with every device already pre-installed with the Android framework, the HTTP URL connection class. That's probably nice for applications that want to be very small and not add too many libraries. Very popular choice for Android apps nowadays is OKHTTP. If you use fetch OKHTTP, then this is a thin wrapper around OKHTTP to use the interfaces that we defined. And then GeckoView itself, our browser engine, can also act as an HTTP client and also implements those interfaces. That is pretty nice because it means you can use the same, the engine that you use to render the websites also to fetch things. And especially for downloads, that's pretty awesome. Since the engine might have cookies associated with the current page, or it might already have a connection to the server. So using the same engine also for HTTP requests, especially for downloads, is pretty nice. So we need to get a client for that. And let's go to our module. Since client is an interface, we need to help the dependency injection framework to figure out what to do. And we also need to import this concept component so that we have all the types here. Concept fetch. Yeah, if you in the chat have any questions, I'm happy to stop and answer questions. Otherwise, I will just continue. Okay, looks like this completed. Yeah, we can import this now. Now I'm not fully sure. I think on the engine we have a method that can do this for us. No, I was pretty sure that this can be done with the engine. Well, we can also just create it here. Gecko view fetch client, and this needs a context. Does not need the engine directly. Okay, and on here we can HTTP client of type client. Then Dagger should inject this here for us. And this should be everything we need here in the service for the basic implementation. There's one more thing with the feature. I think we need to tell it which service to launch. Download manager tab. Need to double check how we implemented this in our browser. I haven't used the download feature in a while. How do we provide the fragment? That's something that should go into the docs, I guess. Oh yeah, we need the matching download manager. The reason for that is there are multiple download managers that you can use. We want to use the one that uses the service to use our engine client to download downloads. There's also a way how you can provide the Android download manager, and then it will pass it to the Android download manager to perform the download, which can be nice in other situations. But here we want to pass the download to the service. Sorry. Why is it complaining about the type here? Oh, because we need to provide more things. Okay. We need the application context. We need the store. We need the class name of the service. It knows which one to launch. And the broadcast manager, I think we are going to ignore. Yeah, we ignored it here too. Local broadcast manager, I think, is deprecated, but here you can still use it to get notified if some downloads ended, basically. That's not what we are interested in. A fragment manager, that's maybe something we need to provide since we want to show the dialog. That's the support fragment manager. What is the right name? Wasn't it support fragment? Or is this not available because we are the component activity? I don't remember all the details of activity classes. Has changed so much over time. Is there still a fragment activity in Android X? Does it extend component activity? What's the tree? Yeah, okay. Then I guess we want a fragment activity instead. And Yeah, now we have a support fragment manager. Awesome. Okay, let's try this again. See what happens. App compat activity. Yeah, that is the thing. Now that you say it, makes sense. What is the hierarchy? App compat activity. It extends fragment activity that extends component activity. Yeah, maybe we want an app compat activity. What do we get from that? Maybe some of the styling things. Yeah, let's make it an app compat activity. Context cannot. Oh, let's go back. Did I? Oh yeah, I asked for context. I want the application. Context can be a bunch of things. Cannot find app compat activity. Ah. Okay, it's just the import that I forgot. Let's deploy this. May I mention something? Yeah, of course. As I remember, Hilt has a special way to inject context. I'm not sure. The only thing I know from the modules here, no, components, what's the right name? Entry points? No, it's, isn't it components? Yeah, this is the thing I wanted. Like, we are installing into the application component since we want to be global, so we can get the application, which is a context, right? If we use activity component, we could get the activity, but that's not what we want here. And using the application makes sense in our case. So I don't think we actually need anything else that injects a context. And it's probably always kind of awkward because it's not clear what kind of context you're actually looking for. Hey, and now, since we are now using app compat activity, we now have 2 toolbars. So I guess we need to change the theme. Oh, let's see. Looks like the thingy installed, the wizard created a default theme here. Day, night, there no action bar, yeah, version, there's this one. Is there a dark no action bar? No, let's just use no action bar for now. Yeah, that looks better. Let's see, google.com. Oh, the reason why I go to google.com is all the time before searching is we haven't set up searching in the toolbar yet. That's something we should do soon because that is super annoying. Let's go to the downloads test page. This one. It did load, but then nothing happened. So let's take a look at, well, the log and also the code. Pitcat. Let's take a look. If I click on this thing, is there anything interesting in the log? We see that it tries to go to this page. See some progress. Don't see anything else apart from that. Why is that? Let's look at the browser here. If there's something very obvious that I forgot. Downloads feature. It's interesting that we do not see the permission dialog and we do not see the do you want to download this file? Dialog. There's one thing I want to try before we debug further. That's giving the app the permission to use the storage. I'm curious if this changes something. Okay, also interesting that it's denied. Is this the default state, denied? Okay, let's launch this again. Thank you for this link. Okay, and let's go to the downloads test page again. Downloads test page. It changed nothing. Oh, now it's obvious. We create the feature and that's it. It never gets started, it never gets stopped. So what probably happens under the hood is the engine notifies the other components about the download, we add it to the state, and then it's hanging in the state. No one is looking at it. But now that we added the feature, it should be started, and then it should see a download object appearing. And it will try to, show the dialog and so on. Oh no, we can't search here. That's definitely the next thing we are going to do. Set up search in the toolbar. Downloads test page. Lots of typos, but the search engine is able to figure it out. And let's take the 20 megabytes file this time. Hey, that's the default download dialog that you see. And let's see, download. I don't see notification here. What is going wrong? We launched the download service. This one should take care. Did we add it to the manifest? No. That's the mistake. Interesting. There's a Hilt download service, but I assume I do not need to care about this. And I hope the plugin will just do the right thing. See, that is the link you posted. Predefined qualifiers. Oh, you mean I can use add activity context and add application object, application context? But this is code that, at least in the example, goes into the constructor of the thing I want to create, right? And that means this would need to live in the component, which then needs to depend on wherever activity context defined, which is probably some kind of Hilt component or library in this case. Let's go back. Downloads. Oh god. Google will figure it out. No, this time it did not. Too many typos. Download test page. $20 megabytes. There's the dialog. Meh. It is not launching the service. Let's look at the log again. Download. We see a bunch of gecko things happen. And then it's silent again. Why is that? This time we registered a feature. We might need to put the debugger here this time and figure out what's going wrong. Let's take a look at the core components once again. Yeah, we pass in the store here, so everything should be fine. Let's start the debugger. Adding the service and launching the feature, that all seems good to me. Downloads, test page. Okay, we see a download coming in. Oh yeah, that is actually not something we need to debug because we see this dialog pop up. So that part is definitely fine, but once we click the dialog, nothing happens. So let's maybe look at this part. We have this start download method that I think the thing will call into, and we use the fetch download manager. Did we forget something here? No. That looks fine. Let's also compare with the one here. Download use cases, we pass those in, right? Yeah. No, that looks fine to me, I think. And edited download service here and the download service. Let's add a debugger here too, but I guess if it gets launched, we should see something in the log. Yeah, let's try this. Okay, this is where we start. Somehow the emulator is also weird if you type fast. Seems to swallow some characters. Okay, download. Okay, that's at least interesting. We never seem to... Oh, did I remove the... Did I remove the breakpoint here? Download manager, download. Okay, let's copy this URL again. Looks like we will go here more often. Download this file. Yeah, we never run into this. There's an alternative we could try. And let's see how this looks like. We do not pass in a fragment manager, which means we are not showing a dialog which is supposed to immediately launch a download since you decided to not show any UI for it. Let's see if this looks different. I have an idea. Let's look at the permissions again. This is a foreground service, and isn't there a foreground service permission nowadays? We are running an Android 11 preview something emulator, so it might enforce that. But it's not in here. Might be in the component. Feature download source main. Oh yeah, it's already in here. Huh. Why is this not happening? Start download. Should end up in this method. No, I'm not sure what it is. And I'm running out of time for today. So I think we will have to continue next time. We are very close to having downloads in the browser. At the moment, I'm not sure why it didn't work. But we will figure it out. I think it's probably a minor stupid mistake that has happened here. We will see. But we now have a nicer setup for dependencies. Almost downloads included, and next time we will continue. Thank you very much for watching. If you cannot follow live or don't want to follow live or want to watch later, in the description of the Twitch channel there is a link to the YouTube channel, and there I will upload recordings. You can watch the last 2 episodes there. So see you next time. Thank you for watching again. Bye bye.